What up, family? It's your boy Gerald. It is Sunday, the 24th of October, 2021. How is everybody doing? So, sitting in the garage right now, supposed to be watching football. Sun's out. I got the garage partially closed because I didn't want the sun. But you can see the palm trees and stuff. So, I had some thoughts crossed my mind as of late, because you know me, I'm always in thought, always in reflection. But one thing that I definitely do is I remain observant. Sometimes you're not required to speak on it. Sometimes what's required is you just to be aware, because sometimes you actually get the reward of learning indirectly through others' experiences, which will only benefit your wisdom. Who am I talking to? But in the midst of it all, I found myself reflecting at a time where, first and foremost, before I even go into it, if you're finding this, it was meant for you to find this. Thank you to those who have supported my channel um, from the beginning, as those who may be new. The goal is to get 1,000 subscribers so I can go live. However, I will say this too. I am actively exploring other options to live stream. I don't understand how Instagram does it, but I'm going to figure that out. But I'll, I'm going to invest in myself. So I've already established a Vimeo account and a Patreon account. So I want to tell you, if you have either one of these accounts, if you don't, go ahead, latch on to me now, because when I start putting content out there, things are going to change. I'm just, you're hearing it now because I'm speaking this into existence. So when it happened, it ain't nothing new. For those who've been riding with me for a long time, you know how I do. This is all about the power of manifestation. I live by that. That is why my reality is the way it is. And I also understand that you have some people that will come into your life that they have a speculative view. If I cannot feel it, if it is not tangible, it does not exist. They're entitled to their belief system. However, I operate and understand from a different perspective. I've always have, and that's because I've always been spiritual. I didn't know what that was as a little boy, but I can tell you it all makes sense, because just your life progress. You'll have things that will be revealed to you or be uh, demonstrated to you, and you will come to find comfort of its presence. Everything happens for a reason, family. Everything. The good, the bad, the indifferent. It is ultimately to make or prepare the best you. Because just like a clock, the cogs in the wheel that demonstrate time, those are cause and effects, moments that demonstrate your life. So you have to be present in your life. And you have to also take accountability of your life. So I got a couple things I want to share. Um, because I know the devil's a liar. And I know that when you don't claim yourself or put the Most High before yourself, it is easy for insecurities to creep in. Life's too short, family. It's too short. That's why you cannot waste time on things that will not produce growth. Who am I talking to? Now, I'm trying to reel this back in because, family, I need your support, because one of the requirements for YouTube to live stream, you have to have 1,000 subscribers. I've had my channel for over a decade now, almost, and I haven't even broke 700. I need your help. If you have friends, family, that my content that you feel can help them, or just give a different perspective, share it. Subscribe. I'm asking this with all sincerity because when I'm able to lift that veil, guess what? Now I can show you the content that has been waiting for a whole year in real time. I mean, granted, yes, I could always do the route of recording, then editing, but you guys know, there's nothing that beats real time, live. And I would like to have that control to do it. So I'm asking you, please help me reach that goal. I think I need 350 more subscribers. So help me get to 1,000 subscribers at least, so I can start showing you not only another facet of my life, but also what the island of Oahu has to offer. Because I know some of you, that's on your bucket list. Well, guess what? I'm here. I want to show you. I wish I had the opportunity, or better yet, I wish I had someone dedicated that can answer the questions that I may be pondering, because time is money. Now, excuse me. Yesterday, had some chores I had to do at proverbial honeydew list. So I'm outside. I got a fruit tree in my backyard, and it produces these. I don't want to say they're smaller than tangelos, but they look like lime. So if you think of a cherry tomato, but envision that as a lime. I got a tree that produces those, right? And it is, within the year that I've been here, it has grown tremendously. So I had to make a point to go and prune it. Now, I've always been a lawn care dude. I think really I was born with a green thumb, and I've got things that I plan on doing with my little piece of property that I have. And as I start to do that, I'm going to also video it in the process. So you'll be a part of it. But while I was focused on pruning this tree, instantly in the midst as I'm focusing on, I've got you see it over me? You see it? I got that Ryobi 10-foot pole chainsaw, and I'm pruning, right? As I'm focused on that, indirectly, I'm reflecting on when I was in my early preteens. And I'm multitasking, but it crosses my mind. One thing about myself, I've always been artistic. I think a lot of that has to do with growing up. So as I was saying, as I'm doing I'm pruning this tree. This is my yard, which is a very small yard because everything's about scale over here. uh, I'm focused on that, and as I'm focused on trying to make sure I'm doing what I need to do because it was pretty tall. Um, in that same moment, I'm reflecting back to a time when I was all about the arts. One of the things about myself, and I really believe being uh, all water, if you go by astrology, I'm a Pisces sun, Cancer moon, Scorpio ascendant. I'm all water, so that's all emotion. And I found myself thinking about a time that when I used to be um, dealing with depression, I would always try to find a way to distract or escape, right? And one of the things that I was very, very talented was poetry. I would just pretty much allow my heart to express itself, and I would put it pen to pad, and I would write whatever I was feeling. Another thing that I would also do is freehand draw, as well as I dabble with music. I studied theory as well as I played a couple instruments and stuff. But I would get bored, or more or less, when there was something that I thought was a sticking point, I would use that as a distraction to remove myself from. And that was nothing but fear. But I found myself in the midst of pruning this tree, and I remember a time that I was sick. Because when I was young, I would get sick a lot. If I get the flu, I might be laid up for about a week. Feeling like the world as I know it. You know, with I was 9. That's what I felt. You know. But I remember one time, um, I was just freestyle drawing, just doodling on a piece of paper, right? And I remembered that, and there's a reason why I'm putting this up. I remember a lot of times I would just let my hand go, and whatever came out of that is what it was, right? And I realized yesterday that everything that I had drawn on this paper came to pass in my present day life. And there was one thing that I did not do or did not produce until yesterday. Because yesterday, I started my day early because here, as the day progressed, the hotter it gets. And I was like, I can't be out there, toasty and stuff. Plus, I don't know what it is about the island. Flies, they just come out of nowhere and they jump on you, and I did not want to deal with that. So immediately I got up. I had to buy that because I have that weed whacker, which you see it laying down, and I was like, well, I could trim the leaves and it'll cut some of the branch, but I want to be able to actually saw down what needs to be. So my intent was to go to Home Depot. So I go to Home Depot, I buy that, and then it was like 8:30. I was like, well, since it's 8:30, I'm gonna go on over to Ross, because Ross, Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Home Goods, they're all under the same umbrella, and depending on your patience, you just never know what you'll come up on. So I said, well, since we're near one, I wanted to shoot over there, and I knew it'll be open by 9 o'clock, but actually it opened up before 9. So we're in there, I'm looking around, because you just never know what you might come up on. And I'm looking around, and I saw this. And when I saw this, I had to get it. Because this has significance to my life. I say this to you because that used to be, I used to always draw hourglass on my poetry. Because one of the one of the groups that I used to grow up that I was that was very influential in my development in my early teens was a group called the SOS Man. One of the albums that they had put out that really had an impact on my life was an album called The Sands of Time. Unfortunately, the album had a lot of hits on it, but unfortunately, that album um, didn't get pushed like it should have. For those that were fans of the SOS Man, um, it still it still got it buzz, but not as it could have for the first two albums that came out. But there was a song called Sands of Time, and I remember the first time I heard that. Um, I was still trying to navigate being a teenage young man versus the dynamic between a young man and a young woman. The whole thing, because I was very naive, very. So my go-to was always my poetry. You know, that was always my strength. So when I saw that, because this is, I always wanted an hourglass. I always want, as long as for decades. And I know somebody said, well, you could have easily just went up. It was one of those situations where if it wasn't present, I ain't thinking about it. Well, it was present, and I believe that it was time. Now, I say that because there were certain images that I was doodling on that piece of paper. That was one of them. And then I was starting to think about the things that I drew. I remember drawing a Jeep, big tires tricked out, you know. I remember drawing my dog, and because one of the things that I drew this huge portrait of. If you guys remember on Tom and Jerry, you had the bulldog, he had the son. Well, I drew this big portrait of that dog, and I put a tattoo on his arm and said, "I love Mom" in a heart shape. And I think I gave that to my mom as a gift for Mother's Day. And you know, I was a comic book kid back then. You know, I was, but I was very innocent. So for some people, it was like, "Oh, you was just a nerd." No, I was just very naive. And I wish that even today, our younger generations would embrace who they are and not rush through life because that's been a dominant problem. Still, you have young women rushing to get old, and you have seasoned women trying to reclaim their youth. When in actuality, you claim who you are and you enjoy the reality that you have. That's where your wisdom comes. But not to be winded, it just made me realize when I had that thought in my mind, everything that I drew came to pass. Everything. I ain't trying to sound crass. I'm not. I remember as a teacher boy drawing the female body and making sure, yeah, every teenage boy does that. everything, because I was very well. I could draw when it came to anatomy. I could draw it very well, and that was just learned, self-taught. So it's like it made me think that I was being shown elements of manifestation without knowing what I was being shown. But how I would be shown would be through life experiences. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. Somebody got a journal right now that you write in, and you are having the nuances of experiences, and you're scratching your head because you're thinking like, wait a minute, I was writing about that. How did it play out? Exactly how I wrote it, because you manifested that. It was meant to happen to teach you either through pain or through perseverance, to bring you one step closer to who you are destined to be all along. So I would be remiss to say this, because I got to. Stop beating yourself up. The worst criticism you're going to ever have is found within your mind. Stop seeking acceptance. Start claiming validation. Be proud of who you are, not who you know. That's for somebody. Because there is an agenda to convince you from the inside out you are less than. Now, I'm saying this for a reason. Because right now, socially, there is a narrative of division. Economically, emotionally, physically. It's being played out by all means of propaganda and media. And its intent is to target said audience to hope that you will have a knee-jerk reaction. And all I'm going to say to you is love yourself more, stay prayed up, stay grounded. I'm telling you that because while we have people that are not claiming themselves, they are choosing to not speak their truth, but speak what is accepted. People are not thinking of the big picture. So what are you talking about, Gerald? But why are you talking in allegory? Okay. Think about it this way, family. And I've said this time and time again in the past. It's in there. You see my catalog, it's 1,000 strong. It don't surprise you why I only have XYZ amount of people, because that's truth. And people don't want to hear truth because it's not salacious. It's about betterment. And people deep down inside are intimidated to look at the person in the mirror looking back. Why? That's insecurity. That's fear. Finally, everything's a reality. They don't like the reality but don't want to change it, even though the reality is right there. Who am I talking to? So, before I cut this on, to share this with you, I thought about this. As you already know, Einstein's definition of insanity was to perform the behavior expecting a different outcome. So, would that also make sense why people will choose to socially dumb down, to willfully accept conditions that are less than, but they return they're still accepted in a set dynamic. But my rebuttal has always been this: not everybody's supposed to know your story, because not everybody's supposed to know your name. Not everybody's going to be afforded to see your dreams or walk with you. Why? Because they knew that from the first hello. They already know what you bring to their lives. They knew that. That's why they were drawn to you. That is why you always will hear me say, each one teach one. So it is your responsibility to learn from yourself, but others. Because the reward out of that not only defines your integrity, but it also personifies your wisdom. Who am I talking to? Queens. I say that because I don't know your name, and that is my way of showing respect to you as a woman. Go back 5 years of your life. Think back to who you were 5 years ago. Why is it that 5 years ago, compared to now, to get attention, you have to wear less? You have to do more. You have to dumb down more. Why? Kings, you know I'm rooting for you, I always have. Why is it you choose not to be comfortable in your own skin? You allow the social narrative to validate your character. Because you don't have something to fold in your pocket, you are less than as a man. Let me tell you something. That is a lie. You might not have yet come into your season yet. But the blessing is this: look to your left and look to your right. But look inside. Notice the people that are not with you. That's your blessing. Because you don't want those people to have access to you. They're the distraction. And maybe, possibly, king or queen, you are the living example of what they have yet to master by your example of being. Who am I talking to? Operative word, talking, communication. How can you convey what you need if you don't understand what you feel? Your life is not meant to represent deflection, denial, insecurity, hopelessness. That's not your life. Never was. But life is not meant to be easy either. You know why? Because all the blessings that are entitled to the moment that you took your first breath will not be revealed until you have graduated to be able to see the value of its worth. We're talking about you. You. That's for somebody. Because somebody has been racking their brains, but not looking inside. You have turned to other people for tutelage, but yet are they representing that in your house, in your life directly, in your home directly, in your workspace directly? Do they represent, are they the personification of what influences you? Because no matter who you know, who you have access, guess what? It won't change. You still got to do that work. Let's talk about physicality. Beauty is the eye of the beholder. Yes, percentage is physical. especially from a male perspective. But you know what separates one woman from the next? It's her heart. It's who she is within. Because let's go back to high school and middle school days. Hold on one sec. Okay, I'm back. Pick it back up. Let me backtrack real quick. You might not realize it, or maybe you do, and you've scratched your head because you've seen the nuances of things they're populating your life. They pop into your life, and you're like, I'm not crazy, but this is like deja vu. Family, you spoke this into existence. Every time that you said, I can't, I won't, never, you just afforded yourself lessons to know the difference. Unfortunately, some people will never graduate on that on that life experience. They won't. Some people, that's why you hear the term sticking points. That's why you also hear people talk about critical thinking. That's why you hear people say, I look I look at life now logically, not emotion. Remember Star Trek? Remember the character Spock? He looked at everything through through a viewpoint of logic, not emotion. Because when you allow your emotion to dictate your decisions, you will possibly fall short 9 times out of 10. And that is why you've always heard people say, never say never. Never say never, because it may just, it just may come true. Because that is nothing but an example of manifestation. Good, bad, or indifferent. But even if it's bad, there's opportunity for growth. Even if it's indifferent, there's opportunity to assess. It just depends on what your perception is. What are you willing to look? Think of it this way. Think about the moment that you decided to allow yourself to be transparent for whatever reason. When you embrace that, the things that you had fears, you found strength. But what was really being offered is you being authentic, reclaiming your life one step at a time. And some people, even though you want well for them, they won't. They can't. Because that's work we all have to do within ourselves. That should be that should be what you strive for. Authenticity, not imitation. That's why one of the tools being used is social media. Because if I can show you something repetitively, you may believe it to be true. We used to have that. There used to be that little, that little meme that used to be about Facebook. Well, if it's on Facebook, it must be true. That's everything on social media is opinionated. So keep that in mind. But what is not is your life. That is why your elders used to tell you, baby, love yourself. You can be anything you want to be. That is true. But until you believe it, will it manifest? Who am I talking to? Sometimes all that's required is you to put that one foot down. Sometimes what's required is for you to listen to the conversation inside you. You're not crazy. That is that inner child trying to reconnect in the adult saying, hey, come back to me. Did you forget? You left me on the swings. You left me with the scar on my knee. You left me feeling unappreciated or unwanted. Who am I talking to? And a lot of that can be alleviated if we will have the courage to have the conversation. You realize how many wounds, family wounds, that have become generational curses? What do you think that is? What do you think generational curses are? That is unclaimed truth, not spoken. And even if you're like, well, no, Drew, that was a lie. Until you have the courage to have the conversation, will the wound heal? Will the point of view be fact checked about that? You realize how many? Okay, I got one right now. This is for somebody. How many of you right now that don't have a relationship with your parents? With your parents, or there's a disconnect at a young age, and you just say, my parents don't get me, but yet have yet to have a conversation with them. Who am I talking to? That's why you hear people say this. There are three sides to the story. That is their side, there's his side, and there's the truth. What you need is the truth. Because as long as you choose to not claim the truth by allowing yourself to be transparent, to embrace your truth, to speak it with respect, not with anger, will you always be held hostage. Why do you think there's so many people that are navigating their life through as if they were like reckless abandonment? They used to call it, a decade ago, they used to call it YOLO. You only live one life. You only live once. How's that working for you? Because last time I checked, the last time a person said, hey, they ended up opening up access to the things that they didn't want, but longed for the things they needed. And let's be truthful. As long as they have air in their lungs, there's always an opportunity to bridge the gap. Who am I talking to? You realize how many women walk on this planet that have daddy issues? You realize that? But the truth of the matter is, you don't understand why daddy's not there. Maybe the person that was supposed to protect you all along couldn't get access to you because the person that had access to you wanted you to feel what they felt. Ooh, I didn't say something wrong now, huh? Because it's kind of hard to have resentment with the person that is in the role of protector, of educator, of guide. But until you have the courage to pick that phone up, write that email, send that text, or better yet, give access so that you can see. Because I'll tell you something. You know what doesn't? People that don't live I'm trying to pick my words respectfully. Put it this way. People that live a lie will always change their lie. But people that live with the truth remains the same. It's no different than when I would always say to you, my family, I would always tell y'all, when it comes to your people that you give access to your life, if you want to know exactly if they truly have your best interest, you ask them this question: what's your purpose? Because if they truly love you, they want the best for you, they've already weighed the pros and cons of what your value to them is, because they're living the example of what you need. But if they give you more excuses and deflection, guess what? They're just taking up space until you discover them, and they're blocking that opportunity for the person that should have been there all along. Who am I talking to? I'm gonna throw this little spiritual thing in here real quick, give you a better perspective. You know why society, Queens, is moving the way it is, and there's so much push for you to have the independent perspective? It's for two reasons. Number one, because they know that you're gonna give a knee-jerk reaction emotionally, and you're gonna spend money. Because statistically, it is the female that spends revenue 5 times out of 10. Actually, it's 7. Out of 10 times, 7. Because the reaction is always emotional. Because that is a female trait. That's a female trait. And that's a beautiful thing if garnered responsibly. But society has told you, think like a man, act like a woman. How's that working out? Number two, they don't want you to be mothers. Because they know the probability of you being mothers, the probability that you'll have a home. They don't want that. They want this generation and those that have come before that to think selfishly, to think independent. Because guess what? As long as you think independently, you will never be nowhere near what you need, unification. Now, that's why when you talk to people, they talk with so much energy, so much anger. Why? Because they're broken. They're broken. They're walking around with wounds. Just imagine what the world would be like if you had the ability to see a person's wounds. That would be a sight to see. But even if you had the ability to see those said wounds, there would still be some people that would use that opportunity to take advantage of what they see. Because they don't want you to be happy. They want you to remain broken. Because now you're not a threat. They know that you're not whole. Which means all they got to do is do this or do that. And you're going to react and, like I said, knee jerk. And you're going to do something 9 times out of 10 that you will regret later. Instead of walking in grace. But you won't see that in social media, supporting that. Don't you realize the closest example of females are talking to you? The closest inanimate object to you would be either a snowflake or a diamond. No two are the same. But when you discover them, it leaves an impact. That is why. I used to say this all the time. It is nothing more sad to see a woman that's lost her smile. But it did not hit home for me until I learned how to smile myself. Because I lost my smile for 20 years. Depression is real, family. But, I wasn't one of them kids that you had, even though I know my mom tried a long time ago. We had Ritalin back then, but I navigated my life the best I could. And I came out. I came out well. Because I had to do a lot of work on myself. And as long as I worked on myself, one step before the other, and it took me all over this world. I've seen some beautiful things. Which, caveat, I want to show you this. I need to get 1,000 likes. I need to get 1,000 subscribers. Because family. I want you to be there when I want to be able to go live wherever I'm at. Say, boom, look at this, y'all. I want y'all to be right there when it happens. Why? Because you deserve it. Now, I mentioned number one, the agenda that is being played out of separation. Now, underlining on that, there are people, there are powerful people that have a position that they believe that the planet is overpopulated. With greenhouse gases, constant Earth events. I mean, look what's going on now in Spain, in India. There's somewhere else. Excuse me. There's somewhere else. There's another volcano going on, and the Earth is very volatile right now. I used to say this all the time. I used to say, when the Earth shakes, the fool will realize there's a God. And she's been ringing like a bell for the last almost 10 years. Every year there's some type of devastation. If it's not flooding, it is fires. If it's not fires, there is a platonic shift underneath the water. Greenhouse gases. The polar caps are melting. And then what? 3 weeks ago, another oil leak? Come on. How's that working with the ecosystem? Come on. But the biggest one that the news don't carry is this. The mortality rate when it comes to women being fertile. You got a lot of women that are sterile. You got a lot of women that are sick. It wasn't like that 30 years ago. You got a lot of women now that their reality is, I got to get a hysterectomy, which means, guess what? You are barren. You're dealing with fibroids. Oh, here you go. Gotta throw this in there. Embrace your sexual liberation. Why? They want you to bust it open twice on Sunday. Why? Because they want you to take that position in your own hand to self-sabotage your body. Why? Because they don't want you to produce kids. But then you've got groups out there that have navigated their way to become politicalized, that they want to be the end all, be all to your gender's position. And every one of them are broken. That's why they yell. They can't have a decent conversation. Why? Because that's fear. And you can tell that about a person by just talking to them. If they can't hold a conversation without their emotion coming into play, that means there is something underneath that is almost at the surface that if you say the wrong thing, it is the linchpin of what will unravel their psyche. Who am I talking to? Well, of course you won't hear that, because they want you to keep doing what you're doing. They want you to keep disrespecting yourself. And then have the nerve to say, well, there's no good men out here, or there's men out there that don't want to have nothing to do with me. It's because there's a narrative being played out to convince you to be separate, to not speak. I mean, when you think about it, it is a modern day civil war, emotionally. So be mindful of who you put your focus on. If their whole position is not the betterment of you, because let me tell you what, there's plenty of people that want to show what they have physically. They do that to make up what they don't have, what they lack emotionally or physically, if you want to be technical. And they want you to have a nomadic life experience. Nah. Look at the things that have been your sticking points. Look at them. Write them down. Have the courage for yourself to question, why is this my sticking point? Why do I feel this way? What can I do to change that outcome? Because as long as you live, you're going to constantly are going to be required to grow. And anything that does not grow will die. I'm telling you this because you deserve that. And see, there's part of me that wants to hit you at the level that, because I know some people don't understand unless somebody's being crass, and I ain't gonna go out like that, because all you're doing is delaying. You're just giving one more day of the condition that you are embracing. When's the last time you smiled? When's the last time you told yourself that you matter? But meanwhile, they tell you, oh, this, that, and this, that, even though that was nothing but agenda. You never got to the meat of the things, of the person. It doesn't matter who you are when you step outside the door. What about the person that's in the mirror? The person that no one sees? That person, that's who I'm talking to. That's the person that deserves to know what freedom feels like. Because you'll never be free until you are able to understand you. Now tell me why you don't deserve that. And I got this I felt this right now. Somebody said, well, that's why they ain't no good men. As long as you choosing to make the decisions that you're making and moving the way you're moving, guess what? That's your reality. You're not going to be given what you need until you're willing to change to receive. Who am I talking to? Maybe that's why Charlie, Stan, Bob, they all look different, but their behavior is all the same. He give me what I want, but he don't give you what you need. That's why you moving the way you're moving. That's why you throwing the proverbial emotional dice every time, only to crap out. Why are you thinking about that one guy that treated you like you needed, but you took for granted? You know why he came into your life? To show you then what you deserved if you try to change it. While we're putting all this focus on the physicality, no one's thinking about the emotional. And if you're not thinking about the emotional, how the hell can you think about the spiritual? That's a disconnect with a disconnect with a disconnect. You're out of service. You're out of line. And guess what? As long as you stay that path, there are people in the cheap seats laughing because you're fulfilling their agenda. Because now they know, like a puppet in the string, they can do whatever they want. And you're going to react in tow. Oh, he pissed me off, so I'm going to call my little dude over here. He don't care about you. He going to disrespect you in all levels. Well, he don't get me like he do. No, the guy that gets you don't deserve you. And he send you right back home trying to process that behind the steering wheel. Why he do me that way? Why he treat me like garbage? Because he knows that you will never be a wife to him. I can get him, but I can't keep him. You can't keep anyone until you claim you. Even to the point, some folks say, well, you know what? I'm done with them. I'm going to jump the fence. Because, well, guess what? We are what we attract, right? But guess what? The lesson only intensifies. Because you're settling for a temporary want. That's for somebody. And you know what I'm saying? That's why you're mad. Because you know you deserve what you long for. That little girl in you saying, why won't you give me this? Why won't you listen? Why do you keep putting me at risk? But you let your little circle convince you to, no, don't do nothing. Nah, you just gotta be more witty. But all that does is bring more pain. Come on. All that does is put more mileage. You could have a PhD in your sexuality. There's nothing wrong with being sexual. When you have someone in your life that has earned the trust for you to express yourself, not disrespect your act. What about that? What about that? You should not spend one day in influx or pain. You want the pain to stop, you need to claim your life back. Take the time to reflect on where you've been. Analyze what don't work. Also, in the process of identifying what don't work, also right next to it, identify what you need to do for progression. If it doesn't come from a pure place, you're going to get the same outcome. So maybe you need to let that little girl in you show you. And for those that have parent issues, have the courage to have the conversation. Stop having conversations to the people that don't give a damn, because we're talking about your legacy and your lineage. And as long as you keep disrespecting your lineage, you're going to keep indirectly disrespecting your life. Be blessed.